Hello, everyone. My name is Rose Dehupagachnik, and I am a full-time faculty member with the School of Justice Studies located at the beautiful St. Cloud, Minnesota campus. And I'm excited to be able to talk to you a little bit about my experience with the Flex 50 classroom or the flipped classroom and how I believe this is a really great way to be able to maximize the human element of your classroom. Of course, community of inquiry allows us to bring together that teaching, that social, and that cognitive presence. And each one of those individually has a human element. And ultimately, this Flex 50 or flipped classroom allows you the opportunity to incorporate all three of those presences while you're maximizing the human element. And there's a bonus. It also gives you the opportunity to work through Bloom's taxonomy with students in the 4 hours that you have with them each week. So let's take a look. I'm going to go ahead and walk through an example of something that I have done in one of my criminal justice classes. While I'm talking through this, I would like you to envision how you might incorporate these basic components into your classes. So the example that I'm going to give is helping students understand the Fourth Amendment and how it applies. So the first thing I would do in a recorded lecture, and so the flipped classroom starts with you recording a lecture. And so in that lecture, I'm going to spend about 45 minutes talking about the Fourth Amendment, talking about what unreasonable search and seizure means and how it's listed in the Fourth Amendment verbiage. And then really we're going to focus on this concept of probable cause and what that means. And so in my recorded lecture, again, I'm going to walk them through a little bit of a historical context of probable cause through what the Supreme Court says, how we've identified this reasonable expectation of privacy and what that means, and then to really help them with that knowledge level of Bloom's taxonomy, as well as understanding or comprehension, we're going to compare that to another standard of proof known as reasonable suspicion. So to do that, I'm going to provide them with a handout. In Adobe Connect, I would just switch to another layout that has that handout listed as a PDF. I would also provide them a file link that they can print it out and so have it to refer to. And then I'm also going to incorporate a video of, and in this particular situation, it is a judge who is giving his definition of probable cause. To take that one step further, we're going to provide an overall summary of what these two standards of proof mean. So what is probable cause and what are different ways for you to remember and understand what probable cause is? And then what is reasonable suspicion? And we're going to compare and contrast those in my lecture. And ultimately, this is really going to help them reach that understanding level of Bloom's. So what I've done so far in this recorded lecture, again, I try to keep them anywhere between 30 and 45 minutes because my expectation is that students are going to watch this at least once. And actually, I encourage them to watch it twice to make sure they are really confident in that material. So those first two slides are really focusing on that teaching presence and reaching that knowledge level of Bloom's. The third slide, which was the green slide, brings them to the next level of Bloom's is the comprehension. And it's really also incorporating that cognitive presence in their community of inquiry. The human element here is ultimately it's me, it's my explanations, it's my examples, it's my handout. They also have the human element in the video. It's a judge explaining the concept of probable cause. And so ultimately, again, we're really building on that teaching presence as well as that cognitive presence. Again, as I said, my expectations is that students watch this and are prepared to apply this information when they come to class. I reinforce that with a quiz at the beginning of the hour. So now let's shift gears and move to the classroom. Basically, I have 2 hours to really maximize their experience as well as bring them to the higher level of bloom. So let me explain how I do that. So again, for this particular example, now we need to figure out based on different scenarios. Are we violating the Fourth Amendment or aren't we violating the Fourth Amendment? Basically, do we need a warrant or don't we need a warrant? Now, the way I do that is I break them into groups and I have several scenarios, so I can always kind of adjust it based on class sizes. And the first thing that I have them do is in their group, they need to decide if their scenario is a violation of the Fourth Amendment or not. Now, the way I do that is a little bit tacky, but what I found is that it really helps them, they remember it. And so I have them make a stop sign and a go sign. And basically, in their group, they need to figure out if, based on their scenario, if this is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. If it is, obviously, then it's their stop sign. Or is this acceptable? And we don't need a warrant, or we can conduct a search. And in that instance, it's a go. So basically, in their groups, they need to make that decision, and then they need to present that to the class. Once they've presented it as a class, then we work through the whys. So them coming up with that either stop or go sign is the application level of blooms. As a larger group, discussing the whys, what rules apply, why is this okay or why isn't this okay, is really reaching that analysis level of Bloom's taxonomy. We then can take it one step further, where I really want students to understand what are the loopholes, what are the ways around this. If we, need to collect this evidence, what are our alternatives? And by having them come up with those alternatives, we're ultimately reaching the synthesis level of Bloom's taxonomy. We're doing all of this, and ultimately, we're really maximizing that social presence of the community of inquiry. And while we're maximizing that social presence, reached all three presences of that community of inquiry. We've also maximized Bloom's taxonomy. We've reached that synthesis level in 4 short hours each week. And this whole concept really maximizes you as the instructor. You're the expert. You're the one that has the field experience or can bring in the current events, something that's happening in the news, to really maximize the students' learning while achieving